So this stretch is a hamstring stretch. Your hamstrings are these big muscles in the back of your thigh. I'm going to show you a number of different variations. For those of you that are not very flexible like me, it's helpful to start from an easier version, and we'll use the wall, the crates, and then move into the floor. So first of all, the most important thing is to have your feet both pointing the same way. So your toes pointing towards the wall, and your legs need to stay vertical, so you're bending from your hips, and you're going to use the wall as support. So you might have to adjust the distance from the wall so that your legs stay vertical, and your weight should be through your heels and the balls of your feet. You don't want to be up on your toes or with your weight too far back in your heels. And what you're aiming to do is, with your hands flat on the wall, is push your bottom backwards and your shoulder blades flat into your back. So your back should be flat, and the move that you're getting is a stretch through the small of your back, down through your glutes and into your hamstrings. What some people do is that arched action, which is not actually accessing your muscles in your legs at all. So you need to think of pushing your bottom back. It helps to lift your head up sometimes. Look at the wall and flatten your shoulder blades flat onto your back. And think of pushing your weight through your heels into the floor. If you can do that one relatively easily, and you're not really feeling any more stretch in your hamstrings, lower the supporting surface. So we're using a couple of crates just to make sure they're steady so that you don't wobble and fall and hurt yourself. Same principle, your legs should stay vertical. This time you're moving a little bit lower. The same movement, you're moving from your hips. So you're not reaching down with a rounded back. Again, if it helps, think of looking forwards, chest forwards, bottom back, and lower from your hips, pushing into the surface hard. So you should feel this through your shoulders as well, and through the backs of your legs. And keep breathing. And again, if you can do that, and you're not feeling much stretch in your hamstring, then you can do a full forward bend. The closer your feet are, the harder it is. So for me, I need to have my feet about hip width apart because my hamstrings are really tight. With a bit of luck, we'll get to the floor. What I think of doing is lifting your kneecaps up towards your hips. So pull through your quads so your quads are working. And the action is to bend from the groin, so bend from your hips, and think of lifting everything up and over your bottom and stretching through your back as you lower your fingertips to the floor. And that's a miracle that I've got my fingertips to the floor. And it's the same action. If you can get your fingertips to the floor, you can push the floor away, which avoids you doing this rounded bit with your back and allows you to bend more through your hips. And you hold it and keep breathing. Make sure your knees stay straight, so it might help to think of pushing your knees backwards. That's not a hamstring stretch. You're not actually doing anything there, so your legs must stay straight. You should feel this in your back. People who've got tight hamstrings have often got a tight back as well, so it's a good way of stretching through your lower back. And if you can go a millimetre more. So if you can do the hamstring stretch standing, some people find it easier to do it sitting if your balance is not quite right. It's exactly the same action, but you do it sitting on the floor. So again, I'm going to show you a slightly easier version to start off with, and then we'll make it harder. So you need to sit on the floor, and again, if you're really bendy, you can have your legs together. I'm not, so I've got my feet about hip width apart. And you need to sit on your bottom bones. Now I know that might sound really stupid, but you don't want to be sitting back on the fleshy part of your bum. because you're never going to get there basically, and it doesn't access your hamstrings. So think of sitting forwards, right on the bones of your bottom, and you've got to work hard through your quads, through the front of your thighs. So you should be working to try and squash your legs into the floor. You will have a bit of a gap under your knees because that's the way we're made, but you should be working hard to keep your feet pointing towards, your toes pointing towards the ceiling, so none of that, and your legs working hard to push into the floor. So there should be a really solid base to be able to pull from. Somebody once described it to me as if you're taking a cork out of a wine bottle. If you don't push down on the wine bottle when you're pulling the cork, there is no way you'll get the cork out. If you don't push down with your quads, there's no way you'll stretch your hamstrings. So think of it in that action. Think of sitting up out of your pelvis. So that should be quite hard work, just sitting in that position. And you're aiming to get towards your feet. And you can do it, I've got a strap, often it helps. If you can't reach your feet, use a dressing gown belt or an ordinary belt. Hook it over your feet, sort of in the mid soles of your foot, and you hold the strap as close to your feet as you can, because that pulling action actually helps. So you can just hold your shins or your ankles. Again, the movement is from your groin area, from your hips. You're not just moving your arms. Your arms aren't long enough unless you move forwards from your hips. Stop laughing at my hands. So if you can't reach your toes and you want to get that feeling of being able to pull yourself forwards, grab a dressing gown belt or a strap. Think of sit tall, chest out, and pull yourself forwards without letting your knees come off the floor. So your chest should be forward, your shoulder blades should be flat on your back, your legs should be working to push your legs flat into the floor, toes pointing up towards the ceiling, legs dead straight, and try and bend forward as far as you can. If you can do that and reach your toes, get hold of your toes and try and keep that back flat. So we're not going for the arch action. We're trying to keep our chest forwards and our shoulder blades flat on to the back of your chest. And breathe and relax into it. You can use your toes to push into your hands, and if you do a millimetre more, that's great. And that's a seated hamstring stretch.